Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Flow with Kim, where we explore all things wellness, from movement and mindfulness to nourishment and personal transformation. I'm your host, Kim, a certified yoga instructor, nutrition coach, and mindfulness teacher. And today I'm thrilled to welcome someone whose work is deeply inspiring, Dr. Nelson Bulmash. Dr. Nelson is a chiropractor, naturopath, clinical nutritionist, and the founder of the Torque Reset Technique. He's also the host of the podcast Health Matters, where he brings a truly integrative approach to healing. His own journey of recovery from a spinal injury in 1984 is a powerful example of resilience and holistic healing. So, in today's episode, we will be diving into the deeper layers of health, how trauma can transform us, and how different healing modalities can work together, and how practitioners like Dr. Nelson approaches wellness in a way that supports the whole person, body, mind, and spirit. All right, so let's get into it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to dive in and find out a little bit more about your personal journey. So to start, I know you experienced a serious spinal injury in 1984 that dramatically shifted the course of your life and work. And as someone who teaches body awareness, I'm curious, how did that injury change your understanding of healing and the body's capacity to recover?
That is, I have to say something. First of all, thank you for welcoming onto your show. Secondly, I noticed in reading your questions, you have an amazing way of asking questions, and I'm so grateful for that. So I could talk for an hour about that, but I'll give you the cliff notes. When we have a very bad injury, it makes life incredibly difficult because we either have to perish, feel like we're going to perish, and some people get stuck in that, I've noticed for many, many, many years, sometimes the rest of their life, or we have to find new ways to circumvent bad injuries. What happened to me was I wanted desperately. I come from a family of extremely high achievers. Like every sibling was at least a state champion, at least a state champion. And so I felt a tremendous amount of pressure between my very brilliant daughter, who went to Princeton, the University of Pennsylvania, extremely bright, very athletic. I would say one of the best basketball players. That wasn't me. That was a Thunder right there, and kind of scary. My brother was the same thing. He was such a good runner. There were people that thought he was going to break Jim Ryan's mile record. And so that was sort of what I grew up side by side with. My brother on my left, my sister on the right. So no pressure, right? So what I found is that I broke my back just days after I won the Michigan State Powerlifting Championships. Never checked this, but I was told I was ranked number one in the United States as a powerlifter in my weight category. And so I was good and getting much, much better. I have done a 600-pound drug-free bench press, which I think is a good bench press at 202 pounds. I used to put, at one point in my life, I could put 805 on a rack. Can you see this? About
Wow.
the floor, and I could pull it for 4 to 8 reps. I've done 640 pounds in a squat, legal squat for 12 reps. So I was a pretty powerful guy. And I'm fascinated, Kimberly, by performance. So what happened one day is I was attending the University of Michigan and I wasn't even paying attention. We had what many speculated to be the worst ice storm in the history of the state of Michigan. I may have been a little macho when I was a young man. And I walked outside and I thought, wow, this is as beautiful as it is deadly. How am I going to get down the stairs from the library? And there was nobody even around. I was the only person I could see on the campus. And I said, get down on your butt and go down bum per step, bum per step. And I didn't. I was too in my ego. And I had my backpack over my right shoulder with probably 35 pounds of books, maybe 40. And I took one step, Kimberly, and I went into the air and I
Oh,
fell at the bottom of the stairs. And it was one of those near death moments. Because what happened was I landed on the bottom of the steps on my back
Oh,
with my backpack here, and I was transiently paralyzed. I couldn't
oh
breathe. I
gosh.
couldn't move any part of the only thing I could do is I could blink. I could just do this. That was it.
Wow.
And it was a surreal moment in my life because I could hear the gentle cracking of the branches as the wind blew through them. It was so beautiful. This exquisite, crisp, pure sound, unlike the tremendous thunderstorms that are outside my window.
I know it's thundering and lightning
Yes.
where we are.
So I hope it's not distracting. I apologize from the quality of the sound. But I remember noting all these details as I thought I was lying dying. Couldn't breathe, couldn't take a breath, couldn't move my toes, my fingers, nothing worked. I can't tell you how long it took. It felt like it was minutes. And I mean, I don't mean a minute or two. It felt like it could have been at least 4 minutes. Suddenly, I could take a very deep breath and not too soon. But in between, I came to this incredible place of peace that I thought, I'm going to die here. Who knew this?
Oh gosh.
I'm 22 years old and I'm going to die alone on the frozen sidewalks of my college campus. And here's what's interesting. I came to a tremendous, Kimberly, place of peace. I just accepted I'm going to die. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. And sort of that inner wisdom said, this is your day. This is it. You're going to leave the world this way. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move my body. I could only breathe now and blink my eyes. And as I was lying there contemplating that I would be transitioning over into whatever the next phase of my beingness would be, I started to think, and I started to think, if I did live, what would I do? And there was this tremendous clarity that came to me. And I said, I would change my life. I would change my life. I'd become much more spiritual, and I would find ways to change the world and take all my fighting techniques and turn them into healing strategies. And I still don't know how. It just wasn't my time, Kimberly. It just wasn't my time. But I slowly felt my toes move, and I went, wait a minute, what? My toes are moving. I can wiggle my toes. And then I felt a sensation of life come from my toes back up to my abdomen. And then I could move my fingers and arms and such. And somehow I figured out a way to crawl to my car and to pull away. But that was a changing point in my life because I went from being an incredible athlete to not being able to put my shoes on, not being able to put my pants on. You want to really be humbled, ask the people around, hey, would somebody come over here and help me put my underwear on? You volunteer? No, 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 no. I couldn't even put on my own underwear. That's like pretty much rock bottom of embarrassing. And I'm being playful about it, but it was really, I was a very, very good fighter. I worked in the second largest nightclub in America, and I fought every single night. I fought crazy people. I fought gangs. I fought football teams that came out to get drunk. I fought thugs, traffickers, pushers, a lot of the worst of the worst of the worst. And in between, you had college kids. And they just wanted to go out on a Friday night and have a good time. They didn't want to be raped. They didn't want to be beaten up. And so I, along with a few of my friends, did everything we could to return a sense of decorum and peace. And my dreams of becoming a national world champion were just crushed. And so I had to, Kimberly, this is where this gets very interesting. I think you'll find this fascinating. I decided the only thing that really ever helped my low back pain was chiropractic.
Mm.
And so, not to sound hokey, but I had something really interesting happen. Once again, I was a really great fighter. I never got beaten in fights. I had very fast hands and feet and was much stronger than most people, period, at any body weight. And one day, I was standing by myself and a voice spoke in my head and said, "My son, I'm going to teach you something that will change your life." Excuse me? What was that? Who said that? Hello? And I, some people aren't going to believe this, but I don't lie. It's the truth. The voice said, "I am your God. I am God. And I am telling you, and I will tell you at various times in your life, things to make sure you're on a particular course. You are going to be a healer. And I'm going to direct you to people, places, events that will help you as such. You have done nothing but harm people. Granted, these people are people you think are bad people, but you're all on a particular path and you've all agreed. I think that might be God going, you go, boy, you go, boy." And suddenly I was standing in a circle, facing myself. And no matter how I went around the circle, I always faced myself. So I realized that no matter who I was always that person. And so I thought, well, that's fascinating. I don't want to be the person I was. I want to hang my gloves up, so to speak, metaphorically, and I never want to go back. I don't ever want to hurt another person. I don't ever want to be around those people again. I want to change my life. And shortly after that, I got into chiropractic school. And I went in specifically into chiropractic school because chiropractic was the only healing modality that really got me to walk again. I couldn't walk effectively. For years I barely felt my lower body.
Wow.
And so I thought to myself, chiropractic specifically is where I need to be. And this was a turning point in my life, Kimberly, because I said to myself, I'm going to figure this out. I'm not going to be a cripple the rest of my life. It's not going to happen. Now, I'm not saying that I don't still have some days where I have excruciating back pain. I'm not saying that. When the weather is like this, I'm in pain as we speak. But I didn't become and I'm not saying that everybody who's crippled can do what I did, but I did. And I decided one day I was walking with my former wife, and we had horrific storms in excuse me, um, I think it was probably around, the early 2000s. And it went through one of my favorite walking areas and it felled many trees. And I didn't want to embarrass myself. I didn't want to crawl under the tree on all fours. I just thought, well, that would look weak and she'll think I'm some weak guy. Well, it was years ago and I was much more foolish, Kim, than I am now, much more wisdom now. And so I foolishly got up on this massive, massive tree. I had a backpack on. It didn't have a lot of weight, but I jumped off of it. And as soon as I hit the ground, Kim, I had severe spinal cord shock where I still had excessive compression of my lower vertebral segments. And there I was again, transiently paralyzed. I couldn't move anything. And my former wife looked at me and said, "Figured out, big fella, 270, 80 pounds. I can't throw you on a 90-pound body and carry you back to the car." And I kind of got wide-eyed and I went, wow, yeah, that kind of makes sense. You probably can't. She said, "No, I can't." And so once again, these moments are what I call God moments, Kim, because what happened was I committed the rest of my life, as I know it now, to finding ways where I could adjust people. This we call chiropractic to make corrections, is to make adjustments. And these adjustments help restore proper alignment and neurologic function. And I was really jacked up for a long time again. And so I said, I'm going to become what I call a combat chiropractor. So Kim, if you and I are out with a group of friends and we're hiking and you fall and you hurt yourself, and you suddenly say, Nelson, my back is not terrible, but I'm struggling to make things work. I'm going to do a neurologic and orthopedic test on you, and then I'm going to use my torque reset system very gently, very cautiously to try to maximize, idealize, if you will, your ability to function. And one of the things I want our guests to realize is these are critical moments of awakening and change in our lives. Because what happened from that moment is I took my understanding of health to a whole different level. And from that, I became a man that was picked to be sometimes a coach, sometimes a chiropractic doctor, working at state, national, and world champion meets. Now, here's why that became absolutely fascinating to me. Because there's still some people that are really focused on the traditional medical model. No problem. You do whatever you choose to do. I want everybody to make choices that help them get better. Here's what it did for me, Kimberly. And if I need to be quiet and you need to ask me some questions, please just interrupt me because I'll talk forever. I love talking. Okay. Please don't hesitate. But what happened here, the point I want to make is the cup is always half full and getting more full with me. And what I realized was I got the impetus to learn how to do very, very creative techniques. And I'll invite you over to my office one day and let you see and experience this if you ever want, because it is really, really fascinating. Here's why. Because I learned how to create techniques that allowed me to have a former world champion come up to me and say, Dr. Bulmash, I'm on the American team. I said, of course I know that. How may I help you? My back. I'm going into the deadlift and my back is terribly painful. And I could pull him over, and in 30 seconds to 3 minutes, I could do very gentle, effective adjustments that restored them. So in quite a number of cases, not only did they finish the meet, they won the meet or set a world title. Somewhere I have letters where people said, Dr. Bulmash, I dedicate my world title to you. You're the reason I became a world champion. Not, of course, I wasn't their coach, but I allowed them to finish the meet. Now, if I may, if you indulge me and let me talk just a little bit longer, okay? So when I had that surreal experience that I told you where I heard a voice in my head, and no, I've never been uh, called schizophrenic, but I've had many of these, actually, many of these. And it's important for people to realize that spirit will talk to you if you allow spirit to talk, and you'll be quiet and listen. That's the biggest problem is people they never shut off the noise. They never meditate. They never do things to quiet their inner and outer world so that they can hear. So I realized another part of my healing was be quiet, stop talking, sit somewhere where nobody is going to interrupt you, go into a meditative state or at least a quiet state, and you pray. And when you pray, what do? You talk to God. And when you meditate, what do? You listen to the voice of God. And once I realized that, my life became very fascinating because I had what one might call conversations with God. And that's another story, but it gave me a tremendous amount of insight about my life and helping others. My goal is to work with people and on people, if you will, until I am no more, until God says, my son, like in the movie Meet Joe Black. Remember that movie?
Yeah, I've seen it. It's a great
Yeah,
film.
it's a great film. And I said, until breath is taken from my body and my legs will no longer support me and my hands will no longer work, I'm going to work on people my whole life. And so until I no longer have the ability to do that, Kim, I'm going to see people because it brings me the greatest purpose and joy of my life. And
That's
so that,
incredible.
yeah, thank
I
you.
actually listening to your story, especially the parts where you're hearing the voice, I got chills, like literal chills.
Well, it probably
Um,
resonates as truth to you, and I don't lie about these things.
Yeah, no, I find that really fascinating. I have questions. You mentioned, what do you do when you meditate? You listen,
You
right?
listen. Yes.
And I teach meditation, I practice meditation, but I have to admit, I've never heard a voice, so to speak, but I have had thoughts during meditation. So my question to you is, I'm very curious about this voice. Like when you say you hear the voice, does it sound like a different voice than yours, or
Yes.
does it feel almost like a thought coming from within?
Well, it happens in two different ways. Mostly it happens like a thought coming into my mind. But let me be very, 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 very clear with you. Um, 2 Februarys ago, I got in a really weird situation. I was sitting comfortably on a Sunday morning at 10:15, and I was going to meet a friend for a hike through the woods. And normally I walk 4 to 12 miles on my hikes. And I didn't know why. I had no idea why. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you until I heard the voice. And what happened is quite interesting. I was sitting there and I thought, I don't know why I don't want to go in the bathroom. Something's not right. I feel a discord. I feel an upset. I feel a fear. Something's not right about the bathroom. I didn't know what it was.
Mm.
I had no idea. And I thought, damn it, I'm intimidated to go in the bathroom. And suddenly I got right to the door. And this old familiar voice said, my son, be cautious. There is somebody waiting for you in the bathroom. That's a Sunday morning. I'm outside and I'm very much alone. There's nobody else around. And here's what I know, because I've walked here, Kim, many, many, many times. It's funny, I told your dad this story today, and he found it quite interesting. And so being a former fighter, I was very cautious, right? So I knew that I had to activate the light sensors before I went in. If there was somebody potentially waiting for me, which was the message I got from the voice speaking, I would be in trouble because I'd be jumped in the darkness. You can't see anything in that bathroom without light, nothing. There are no windows, so it was completely dark. And so I said, okay, warrior mode, make it happen, Nelson. Activate the machine. And I took my foot and I pushed against the door. Didn't hear anything, Kim. It was pitch black. And so I said, okay, make it happen. And I pushed the door open. I took my hand and I did this to activate the light sensors. And then I paused, didn't let it close. I wanted to make sure that if somebody was going to run at the door, that I could see them coming at me. And so I counted 1, 2, 3, and at 3, the lights came on. And I said, okay, time to rock and roll, baby. And so I slowly went in. I didn't, here's the thing. This was my life for years. I started doing bouncer work when I was 14 or 15 years old. I was fighting men. Never told him my age, but I was 6'2" at 13. So what I did was I slowly went into the bathroom and there was a wall on the left side made of concrete blocks. And I very quietly walked in, noticing whether I could hear any movement or if I could hear anybody breathing. Nothing. I said, okay, this is somebody that has experience. This is not, anybody. This is somebody that knows what they're doing. They're planning. If there's somebody in here, they're planning to attack me and catch me completely off guard in the darkness. And I got near the very end of the wall and I could hear somebody breathing. They weren't controlling their breath. And I said, I got you. You're going to be mine. And I came quickly around the corner and there was a very large man, much bigger than me. And I'm a pretty big guy. And this guy was, see if you can punch down like this. He'd come around the corner and he leaped up at me and I was right there to get him, right there. And I know how to move very well as a fighter. And so as soon as he was there, I was here. I said, you want to roll? Let's do this. Come on. I'm here. I'm ready. No fear. And it blew his mind because I'm sure in his mind he was thinking, what just happened? I was in
Right.
a completely dark room and it should have taken, people like that are calculating. They don't miss details like that. They want to make sure that when they hit you when you're at the weakest. And so I waited till the lights came on so he wasn't hitting me in the darkness. And I, having all the experience I've had as a fighter, I stood there, excuse me, and just said, bring it. I'm right here, baby. You want to roll right now? Bring it. And so he looked at me like a wasp, and it was really afterwards. It was really freaky. When you have his like when you teach yoga, it probably doesn't matter unless you have a world-renowned yoga teacher who's watching you. You're like ready to go when class
Right.
starts, ready to go. Well, when you've had as many fights as I have in the world, you're just ready to go. So I wasn't afraid of him. So I think the fact that I came in and the lights came on before he had the opportunity to jump me, the fact that I knew exactly where he was, and the fact that I was ready before he was to engage blew his mind. And so he slowly walked out. Well, the story ends that the police, I called them the next day. I said, I got to call the police about this. Was too weird. It leaves me too unsettled. Eventually, the guy came back and the police caught him, and he was not a good character. So what's interesting is that life prepares you for life if you're paying attention. All these years later, as a 63-year-old man, all of my training, all of my training came right back to me. And you might be thinking, well, how's that apply to life, health, Nelson, and life?
Mhm.
Here's how. As a warrior, I train every day for the inevitability of life to show up however it does. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I take really good care of myself because I had a lot of really bad characters attack me, come after me, and assure me that they would take me out of the world. And I was just cranky enough at that stage in my life to say, I'll be waiting. I'll be waiting. That leaves predators a little unsettled. Like I think this guy's crazy. Indeed. So, in other words, you find practices, multiple practices, Kimberly, that allow you to always be prepared for whatever it is. If it's that you want to hear the voice of God, if it's that you want to be protected, you're a beautiful woman, you're walking in an area that there's some violence, that could have happened. You want to know where you are, what you're doing, and how to be safe at all times.
Mhm.
And so I found things that were very important to be flexible, very important to have good balance, because life has a way of throwing you things that do what? They take you off balance,
Mhm.
right? And so I had amazing balance. I had an incredible ability to jump. So if somebody was attacking me that was much taller than me, like, this guy was almost my height crouched down. So I'm going to make a guess. I could be wrong. Don't hold me to this, but he was probably at least 6'6", 6'8". He was a big guy,
Wow.
big man. He was a big
Giant.
shoulders much wider than me. And I'm that guy that wherever I walk to be prepared,
Hmm.
right? And so I take really good care of myself because it allows me to function, to think, to feel in a way that I would never otherwise be able to.
Hmm.
Strongly believe that guy would have killed me that morning. I
Yeah.
strongly believe. Not I would have been hurt. I just intuitively. And I want to share, if you'll give me a moment, one more interesting thing about that story. Afterwards, when I saw how big he was and that I could have gotten in a really deleterious situation, I said, God, number one, I said, why didn't you allow me to hurt him? Surely he's hurt other people. It wasn't random. He didn't know who was going to come in the bathroom. He had no idea it was going to be me.
Right.
And the voice answered as such. It said, my son, I knew you were coming here. I am God. I know all things. I knew that you would be the next person in, and I knew how well you can protect yourself. The person who would have come after you, would have likely been killed. He had no ability to defend himself. And lastly, I want no more blood on your hands. You are a master healer. I want the rest of your life to helping people recover from trauma, not creating it. Do you understand? And I said, I'm sorry. He said, there's no reason to apologize. You acted perfectly, perfectly. And I know who you are. I am your God. And I said what I said because I didn't want you, nor do I, if you don't have to, ever use your hands to hurt anybody again. The quality of your work is too good. You will be a healer for the remainder of your life. Are you clear? I am. Thank you. You're welcome. And then I walked out of the bathroom and I met my friend. And she said, are you okay? You look a little wide-eyed. I said, I'm a bit wide-eyed. Yes, indeed. I had a very strange interaction. And weeks later, I had a beautiful, beautiful interaction with the police officer who said that they had captured the guy. And he said, we never knew what happened to you. We didn't keep your number. We just took down the information and made sure every day we went to the bathroom to see if any strange person was there. And sure enough, about 6 weeks later, I think it was, they caught him.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story. I feel like it serves as a great reminder to us all to always take care of our bodies because we never know when we're going to encounter a risky situation.
Yes.
Like it's like hearing your story, it reminds me I need to take some more self-defense classes because
Oh,
you just never
yes.
know. And
You never
also
know.
listening to your story, it reminded me of a yoga sutra. There's a yoga sutra that reinforces this notion of taking care of your body, practicing mind-body awareness, getting strong, all those things,
Yes.
flexibility.
Right.
It's not just about the present moment, but it's about preventing future suffering.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
because you just never know what your future self might encounter, and it's always good to be prepared. The healthier you are, and the more physically fit you are, the more capable you'll be to handle yourself in any dangerous situation, whether it's a fall, whether it's an unexpected attacker. But I find those moments where you have kind of that spiritual connection really, really interesting. And I've heard other stories from people that have had that kind of spiritual connection where you hear a voice speaking through you. I've never had that, so I find it really, really fascinating. So thank you for sharing.
You're very
You
welcome.
mentioned the torque reset
Yes.
earlier. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about how that specifically, the torque reset.
Yes.
Um, you kind of explained a little bit about what led you to create it. But I'm curious, how does that differ from traditional chiropractic care?
I love your questions. I stated it when I read yours early this afternoon. Your questions are brilliant. So, as somebody who had trained, I used to train for hours a day. Sometimes on the weekend, if I didn't have to work long hours, I'd work out 6, 8, 9 hours in a day. And when I tell you I loved working out, I loved, and I was very, very good. And so, for example, if a person grabs you like this, I couldn't afford Kim because usually people knew who I was. It was rare, unless I was fighting a professional fighter, that I would fight less than two, three, four people. And so I had to get people off of me very quickly. So, for example, I can take your wrist, you're right-handed. So if I take your wrist and I extend it like this and I rotate it internally and externally, usually with right-handed people, the interface of the radial bone and the carpals has excessive resistance, particularly on the handed side of the individual. What I realized, and I would love to show you this, I'd love to have this video recorded because you would get, wow, this is fascinating. You're taking something that you use now to help people function better. And it's very gentle. And you help their wrists, their hands, their elbows, and their shoulders work much, much better. And yet, I can also use the same technique, strike the wrist here, strike the bicep here. They can't use the bicep to punch me or grab me. And then strike the side of the neck and compress the nerves that form what is called the brachial plexus or the brachial network innervating, in this case, the right upper arm. And so I had this incredible epiphany, like, oh my God, there's just a sliver of difference between doing a healing technique and a technique that could paralyze a person. How fascinating is that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's almost like it's kind of ironic that
Very
it
ironic.
makes me think of Tai Chi a little bit. For example, I teach Tai Chi. Tai Chi is all about healing, self-healing, but any Tai Chi movement sped up is self-defense. And
Yes,
so the same movement you're using for healing yourself, if sped up,
is
can do the
destructive.
opposite for someone else.
Yes, yes. So I have worked for 30 years on this technique, and I can do things without even, I can do them with you're standing or you're sitting. And they're fascinating. If you watch me work, I have I've had thousands of people where I go to big events, for example, and I'm at an international event, and people who know me, Dr. Nelson, could you please take 10 minutes to adjust me? And before I know it, I have 30 to 100 people in line waiting for me to work with them. And everybody says the same thing, like, where did this come from? This is almost like you're doing martial arts or you're doing chiropractic. And I say, I might say that I am. But it's beautiful because it's super gentle, super controlled, and very, very, very effective.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so interesting how different types of healing modalities can work together. And as a yoga teacher, I'm very curious what you think about how chiropractic work can support healing alignment in tandem with yoga.
Yes, wonderful question. So, one of the challenges that I find with my friends who do yoga is they make the mistake of turning it into a competition. Do you know what I mean when I say that? Like, guys,
Yeah.
I'm going to see how far I can stretch my leg and get it up here behind my head. And I heard a yoga master in an old video. I think his name was Iyengar. And I'll never forget this. He said the purpose of yoga, and I hope I think it was him, but it was somebody masterful like that. And it was very old. The film footage was terrible. But he said this. He said, the reason we do yoga first before we study, before we learn, is because it calms the body and mind. So we can do what? Hear the voice of God. And I thought, yes, yes. And so what I think is number one, alignment is everything. I'm going through a personal crisis right now. I'm going through some serious depression. Why? Because I had a bad accident. Again, I'm embarrassed. You might think, Nelson, can you walk downstairs? I'm just asking, because 5 to 7 years ago, the family was watching a really, really wonderful movie, and everybody said, Daddy, the dog needs to go out, and it's your turn to take the dog out. I said, my God, we're right near the end of the movie. Can't we watch the end of the movie? No, Daddy, he might poop on the floor, and you're not going to clean it up. I said, well, if it's my mistake, I'll clean it up. They said, Daddy, please take the dog out to poop. So, Kim, one of those moments again. I'm paying attention and not missing because they're not going to stop for Daddy. They're going to keep watching because it's too exciting to turn the TV on pause, right? And so I am running down the stairs and I take my hand and I fling it to turn the light on and I miss it, Kim.
Oh no.
Well, that's really oh no, because I didn't stop. I was moving too fast. And so what happened was, of course, I tripped over my dog's toy at the top of the stairs, went all the way to the bottom, tore my left calf, various ligaments in the knee and the ankle, and tore my Achilles. I was a mess. Now,
Mm,
it was super cool. I healed pretty well from all of that. What I didn't heal well from is I knew I needed to stop myself. I was moving way, way, way too fast. And so I took my right foot and I slammed it into one of the steps. And when I did that, Kim, I felt an explosion of pain and
oh
disruption
gosh.
in my right hip joint. And I went, that was not good, not good. And I don't find there are a lot of chiropractors that really specialize in soft tissue work, which is very effective for all sports, all activities, including yoga, and extremity work. And what is the base of the spine if you're standing up? Well, it's down the kinetic chain. It's got to be your feet, right? So as your
Hmm.
feet go, your ankles go. As your ankles go, your knees go, your kneecap goes, your hips go, your spine goes.
Everything's connected.
Yeah. So I I moved out 8 or so months ago, going on 9 months ago, and I live in an apartment now. And I started having tremendous hip pain, right hip pain, tremendous pain. And I thought this is bad because nothing that I was doing was controlling the pain. It was getting worse and worse and worse. So a good friend of mine said, "Listen, Nelson, we got to look at this. This is you're a very athletic man. You know, you're probably one of the most athletic 60-some-year-old men I've ever seen or known in my life. What you can still do in a gym is incredible." I said, "Well, thank you, Joe. It's very kind of you. I really appreciate it." He said, "Well, you're welcome, but the point I'm making isn't that. It's you got something really significant going on in your hip joint, really significant." I said, "Well, you want to take an x-ray?" And he said, "Yeah, let me take an x-ray." And he took an x-ray and my hip joint was destroyed. There's no joint
Wow.
left. The femur head had pushed all the way into the pelvis. And so in July or August, will be having a hip replacement. And again, it's like, oh my God, I thought I gave up all this trauma. And yet, you can make one silly mistake running down the stairs, falling down the stairs, and doing great damage. And 5 to 7 years later, they find in many of these cases significant degenerative changes have arisen that cause you to have more significant work done. And the reason that yoga or any activity does better with something like chiropractic because you're really orchestrating a nervous system that functions better, so you get greater coordinated effort of the body and the organs and better alignment. Because
Hmm.
here's what's so you have to focus in being aligned with God, aligned with life, aligned with purpose, and aligned with body. Because whenever you aren't, there will be peril, there will be punishment, there will be a destruction in the force, so to speak, disruption in the force, and you will suffer somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, I always tell my clients that wellness, it's not just the absence of illness, it's a sense of vitality and inner alignment. Because you'll be talking to people and they'll say things like, "Well, I'm pretty healthy." I'm like, just because you're not, quote, sick, health and wellness is so much more than that. Um, to have that true sense of vitality and energy, and as you said,
Yes.
alignment,
Yes.
physical alignment, and then like that inner alignment as well.
Yes.
So that's a great point.
I really
Um,
appreciate you telling your people that because so many people make the mistake. I don't need to see a chiropractor. I feel great. No, you don't. First of all, no, you don't. You don't. You start talking to people. You have a little trouble with your right shoulder. Really move it. Oh, you can't really move it, can you? Why are you limping? Oh, I hurt my ankle. I sprained it a few years ago. And you're still limping? So you haven't done anything to take care of it? Oh, no, not really. And you find out most people have, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different things going on.
Yeah, and a lot of times people are so used to not feeling well. People are so used to not having all the energy they could have. People are so
Yes,
used to having digestive issues. People are so used to having kind of stiffness. They don't actually realize that they could feel better because
yes,
their sense of normal, their status quo is is not feeling that great. So that to them, it's like, oh, I
It's
don't feel so
normal,
bad, but they don't have, they don't know real health. They don't know how much better they could feel. They don't know
yeah,
how much more energy they could have, you
right,
know?
right. I had a really funny experience just a few years ago. I was working out one day in an LA Fitness, and I had a very handsome, funny gentleman walk up to me, very big guy, really muscular guy. And he said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "No, no, I actually have no idea who you are." He said, "You don't recognize me." I said, "You look like a former football player that somewhere along the line I'd seen." He said, "Yeah, I was the starting, lineman in this position for the team called the Miami Dolphins." "Oh, that's where I saw you." "Okay." He said, "I've never seen anybody do what you just did, man. How old are you?" I said, I was 60 years old." And he said, "How many reps did you just do with those dumbbells?" I said, "I did 62 reps." He said, "Good God, man, you did 8 sets before that. I was watching you because I wanted to use that bench." "Yeah, that's what I do." And then he swore a little bit playfully. And he said, "MF, where the hell are your ancestors from?" I said, "Well, I have a lot of Russian and German in me." He said, "Yeah, of course you do. Of course. Yeah." I said, "I love lifting." And I had 125-pound dumbbells in my hand, and I had done 8 sets of 12 to 15 reps with 60 seconds in between each set. And then I waited 8 minutes, and then I did 62 reps with the 125-pound dumbbells.
Hmm.
And he said, "You understand you're stronger than any NFL player I know." And I said, I don't know. I don't work out with NFL players anymore." He said, "But you did at one point." I said, "I did a little bit with a few of them, yeah." He said, "How do you keep yourself?" So he said, "I've never seen anybody take 125-pound dumbbells and press them for 62 reps at the end of 8 sets of hard reps already." I've trained a long time. You do as you prepare to do.
Hmm.
He said, "Thank you. You have no idea how much you inspired me. I want to be you when I get your age." I
Yes,
said,
I love hearing stories like that are so inspiring because I feel like it's so easy to tell ourselves this self-limiting narrative that we're limited by our age, that by the time we get 50, 60, 70, 80, oh, we just have to accept that we're not going to function as well. We just have to accept that we're not going to be as strong or as alert or as energized. But if you create that
"Yes,
self-limiting
Kimberly,
belief, that's
yes,
going to manifest. But if you
manifest
say
itself."
to yourself mantras like, no, I am strong, I am capable, I am healthy. I mean, I've seen 90-year-old yogis that are doing headstands and handstands and live a very active life at 90 something years old. So it's all about mindset.
Yes,
And you have to believe in yourself, you know? So I
right.
love that you share these stories with people because I think that they really are inspiring. And it's from your own anecdotal personal experience.
Of
So
course.
I
And
think
here's the
it's
cool thing. You said something that was absolutely brilliant and gold. You have to plan for it. I got into it with an estimated 2,000-pound tiger shark a year and a half ago. Now, I wasn't fishing for sharks. I don't believe in fishing for sharks. I fish for what I can eat, right? But you can't always help who bites the bait.
hmm
And I got into it with a big, big, big fish, and he dragged me all over the place. And the people watching me were like, "Dude, you're not going to give up, are you?" "No, I'm a pit bull. This tiger shark has never fought a person like me. I'm not giving up. He may, I'm not." And they laughed like, "Oh, the 2,000-pound shark isn't going to give up." I said, "I'm not going to speak for him. I just know I." And so, Kim, an hour and 20 minutes later, I'm on this beautiful 67-foot yacht. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful yacht. And this fish is running all over the place. And I'm like, "You can pull me anywhere you want." It's taking this big, how can I do this big yacht, take it like this sideways when it's anchored, in the off the shore of St. Thomas. And people are like, dude, you've been fighting this for over an hour. How in the world can you still be doing this? I said, you have to understand something. Nothing of me is without thought. What does that mean? It's like I intentionally do things like this to keep myself bad to the bone. What do you mean bad to the bone? Like where I'm not intimidated to fight a 2,000 pound tiger shark. Like that 2,000 pound tiger shark, metaphorically, is like somebody walking in who's broken their back and is transiently paralyzed, like I was, them saying, Dr. Nelson, I've heard amazing things about you. I heard your story of you breaking your back, and I can't live this way for the rest of my life. Will you do the best you can? Will you just try to help me? Most of the people that come in, unless they've been paralyzed severely for 20 or 30 years, they improve. I'm not saying everybody does. No, everybody doesn't. I've had people that were in accidents that were so bad, their brain function, their body function is highly compromised, and they might improve 20 or 30%. Some people that's okay. Some it's not okay. Some people are looking for miracles. I'm not Jesus, and I can't wait. I can't, bless you and have you no longer be paralyzed. But I do pretty good work. I do really good work, and it's rare, excuse me, that I can't make somebody work a whole lot better, function a whole lot better than they were. And nothing makes me feel better than when I have a high profile person that comes in and says, Dr. Nelson, yes, I need you. Okay, what do you need? You need me to tell you a joke? Yeah, no, not today. What I need you to do is I need you to clear my mind. I'm speaking before Congress, or I'm speaking before, excuse me, the board of directors. Fascinating. And you want me to work on you to clear the pathways. Yeah, because I always feel optimized when you work on me. And that's why you do yoga. And that's why you do chiropractic. And to do both creates a synthesis and a harmony that makes you better than you would be in any other way. And that's the gift we give ourselves.
Yes, it's beautiful. Um, so when it comes to healing, as a nutrition coach, I'm always interested in how food specifically supports healing. And I'm curious, do you follow any specific nutritional philosophy with your clients, or do you take on more personal case by case approach?
I'm going to tell you an amazing story. I had a young Russian woman who was 28 years old. She had a PhD in biochemistry. She was one of the most irascible human beings I've ever dealt with to this day. She was like a honey badger, a badger, or a wolverine. She was just so irascible. And she kept calling me a fat American boy. And I said, I had an autoimmune disease that causes my intestines to swell. And so it makes me look fat. I assure you, if I take my shirt off and you poke my belly, you will find that there's no fat to be found. But I do have an inflammatory condition that makes it look like I'm bloated or fat.
I've heard of this condition, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was called, for me, ulcerative colitis. So, by the way, I don't have it anymore. I have been officially tested and checked out by medical doctors repeatedly who say, you put down that you had Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I did. But you can't get over that. I did. I did. Well, you also said you had an intestinal autoimmune disease. I said, yes, I did. I just scoped out your intestinal tract. You don't have that anymore. I said, I know. No, I did work and I healed myself. So food is very important. So I said to this young woman, who, by the way, looked awful. She looked awful. And I'm not poking her because she poked me. I'm poking her because she wanted to be two things that I'm not a fan of. And if you let me explain, I'll tell you why. She was a raw foodist and a vegan. Now, that's a Kimber, that's a pretty hard path to live. To only eat raw food and vegan. Her hair was falling out, her face was full of acne. She looked like she was 6 weeks out of Auschwitz. She looked terrible, terrible. And I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to send you to a fatter boy than me. What? Why are you going to do that? I said, because I think he's one of the most brilliant doctors in the world. His name is Stephen Halterwanger. He's a very, very dear friend of mine and an absolute genius. And he told a story, and I want you to hear it real quickly because you'll love this. How do you eat? Here's the advice he gave her. She came in his office and he said, "Hey, how are you?" It was like a big Santa Claus, weighed easily 300, probably 320 pounds. More fat than me, Kimberly. And he said, "Ah, you come from a very beautiful part of the world." What? How do you know that? Because you have the accent of someone from the Ural Valley. How in the world would you know that? He said, "Am I right?" Yes. You've seen so many people, you can identify my accent from that localized part of the world? He said, "I've been around. I'm not just fat. I've been around a long time." Hmm. Got her attention because he nailed it. He nailed exactly the mountain range that she was from and the valley her family was currently living in. And she said, "Well, what do you think I should do?" And he said, "Well, if I may be very candid with you, I've never been a fan of veganism and I've never been a fan of purely a raw food diet. Purely a raw food diet." He said, "Here's what I would do." What? What would you do? He said, "You want your hair to stop falling out? You want your acne to go away? You want your legs to gain some muscle?" Yeah, I'm trying to be a raw foodist vegan bodybuilder. That's a pretty hard combination, Kim. You hear what I'm saying here? That's a really hard combination. And so he said, and he knew the answer. This is what was so cool about him. He was so brilliant. He always knew, as a general rule, the answers to his questions. He said, "I'll bet if you check it out, you'll find that most of your people live to be at least 85 to 90, maybe 80 to 90. Yeah, that's true. And you probably have some people that are up over 105. Yeah, I have a few relatives that are over 105 years old. What do you think if you lived to be 90 to 105? Would that be a good life if you had quality? Are you 105 years old? Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be a life well lived as long as I were healthy. How old do you feel right now? Damn, I don't feel very good. No. You know why? No. I've done a lot of research. I have a PhD in biochemistry. I'm a really smart person. I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. He said, "Here's what I want you to do. Get a hold of some of the longest lived people and find out if you can go back 5 to 10 generations what they ate to live to be 95 to 105 years old." Guess what? None of them were vegans. None of them were raw foodists. You know why? Because, Kim, you can't live in the Ural Mountains where it routinely gets down to 30, 40, and 50 degrees below zero eating sprouts and broccoli. It
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Yeah, I know specifically if you want to live a vegan lifestyle, you have to take supplements because it's very hard to get those complete proteins, all 20
Yes.
amino acids.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
difficult to get certain things like B12, vitamin D. So you either have to take supplements or really master the art of pairing your proteins if you
Very
want to
well.
be a vegan. I think there is a healthy way you can do it,
You
but
can't.
it's so much harder.
Listen, and I want to be very clear. I'm not saying you can't do it.
Yeah.
Do you really want to make your life that hard? Because all the vegans I know do nothing but bitch, excuse my language, about how hard it is to be vegan. You know what,
Yeah.
Kim? I don't believe in my life being hard. At 63 years of age, guess what? I don't want my life to be hard anymore. I don't believe it has to be.
hmm
I want to be doing things like this. I'm having an amazing time with you. I want this to be how I live my life. I want to have great conversations with amazing people where I learn, you learn, and the people enjoy the information we put out. That's the kind of life I want. Okay. So he said to her, so your family ate a lot of wheat, real wheat, not adulterated wheat. Let me
There's a
see.
big difference.
Thank you. He said, you probably went to school with a huge piece of real wheat bread, an inch thick, probably this big around, and your mom probably put half an inch to an inch of pig lard on it. Yeah, that's exactly correct. I said, what's wrong? I said, you know how unhealthy that is? No, I don't. What do you mean? You just told me you had quite a few members of your family that lived to be 90 to 105 plus years of age. That's way beyond what most people live. Yeah, I guess that's true. I said, do you feel really good about the way you're living and dieting and such? No, I feel terrible. I feel terrible. Absolutely terrible. You know why? No, all my research indicates that I should be vegan and raw foodist. I said, here's what people forget. Your diet should be heavily based on what the last 10 generations of your people ate, the
Mm.
best quality of that. And then you supplement on top of that. I went to Alaska some years, I think 5 years ago, and I felt so badly for these three lovely young women. They were probably about your age, Kim, and they weren't very happy. I said, ladies, how are you? We're okay. I said, bullshit. No, you're not. No, you're not. What's going on? They said, well, we're trying to teach people the importance of being vegans. Excuse me? You came to Alaska where it gets down to 40 below zero routine, and you want to teach people how to live as vegans. I
Probably
said,
not the best place to do that.
yeah, yeah. You go to, southern Texas, you want to go to Arizona.
Right.
Okay, all right. And they said, well, wait a minute, what do you mean? I said, this is Alaska. Did anybody tell you that? Of course we know it's Alaska. Well, let me ask you something. What in the vegan polio is going to keep you warm at 40 below zero? Um, I don't know. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. What liberates the most heat? Protein? Yeah, protein. So you're going to eat high protein and high fat. I said, if you study the Eskimos, the Tinglets, the oh, there was another one that I just forgot the name of. You study them as I did, and you find that 80% of their diet is fat. Fat.
Hmm.
Why? Because you liberate twice the energy that can be used from heat for heat than you do with protein
Hmm.
or with carbohydrates.
Yeah.
Now, protein's more difficult to digest than most fats. So it inherently heats the body. So they'll go out and kill a whale and eat approximately 20% of the muscle and such and the organs, and then the rest will be fat. Because you don't know when you're going to get your next meal. There's no McDonald's at hand up in the Arctic.
Yeah. That's a really great point. So it sounds like your approach is very much case by case, and nutrition is different depending on geography and climate and where you
Yes.
live.
How
There's
you
so many
work,
different factors that go
factors.
into nutrition. You can't generalize the
Yeah,
same handbook for everyone everywhere,
you're
right? So
right.
that's what I'm getting.
Yes, that's the message I want you to get. Look at how the person lived. I come from, I had two relatives, a great cousin and his father, that were reported to be two of the strongest men to ever come out of Russia. My cousin Michael, as my dad called him, he was a wonderful, wonderful, kind, protected man. And anytime my dad had trouble because he was very sickly as a child, they thought he was going to die, he was there to protect him. And Michael wouldn't hesitate to take on 12 men at a time. if you were doing bad things, he was the man that was going to rip and tear. And he was going to let you know that your life could be taken away very quickly if you were stupid, foolish, or unkind. My dad said he was one of the most kind gentlemen he ever knew. And my dad was at a beach in Baltimore when he was a young man. He probably weighed about 170, 75 pounds. Imagine the story I'm going to tell you. So his cousin Michael walked up to him and said, Jerry, how are you? How's my favorite cousin doing? He said, I'm doing fine, Michael, thank you. Hey, Michael, no, Jerry, I'm with my wife. I want to pay all the attention to my wife today, Jerry. Michael, your favorite cousin. You are Jerry. Okay, fine. What do you want me to do? He said, could you do just one feat of strength? Just one. Okay, fine. What do you want me to do on a beach here in Maryland? He said, could you pick me up? Okay, I'll pick you up. How do you want me to pick you up? He said, I want to cross my arms like this and have you pick me up like this. How can I do that? Now imagine this. Okay, Kimberly, you're standing in front of me and you asked me to do this to you. How much is it improper to ask about how much you weigh?
I weigh like 115.
Okay. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because 2 weeks ago I weighed myself in at just under 300 pounds.
Oh, okay.
I don't look like it when you see me, but I'm very dense. So a little more dense than you are.
Hmm.
Bigger pit bull than you apparently. So my dad crossed his arms to do this like this, and his cousin didn't step over to him. He didn't walk over to him and get under him like this. He put
Mm.
his arm like this under the X of the cross, and he just went like this. And everybody went, did he just do that? Now think about what I'm saying. I'm going to take my arm like this. He literally reached over, picked him up like this, and put him over his head like this.
Like Superman.
170, 75 pounds. Now, I met
That's
a gentleman by
strength.
the name of Bill Kazmaier out of the fine state of Alabama some years ago. And he said to me, what's your name? To my daughter. My daughter was a world champion. And she looked up at massive Bill Kazmaier and he said, my name's Ariel Sage Bulmash. Aren't you a beautiful little girl? Thank you. What's your name? I'm Bill Kazmaier. Have you ever heard of me? I have not. No. Well, Bill Kazmaier won many strongman competitions. And Bill that day had a 170-pound dumbbell
Oh, wow.
standing in front of him. And he said, Nelson, you look like a pretty powerful man. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. I'm reasonably strong. Humble guy. Got it. He said, can you pick that up? I said, Bill, I have a problem. I've done so much heavy benching that I can't, that's as high as I can get my arm. So I can't take a 170-pound dumbbell and press it over my head. He said, you failed to balance lifting over your head versus benching. I did. Why? Because I found that the more I did military type presses, the more I had trouble with my shoulders getting
Mm.
inflamed and not functioning well in my bench press. I got it. Okay, that certainly happens with some guys. I said, I was one of those guys. He said, okay, I got it. I said, I'll pick it up for you, but I can't press it over my head. Now, you know what I'm thinking, Kimberly. This is the approximate weight that Michael took straight armed over his head. Now, the next time you're in a gym, now, I do not want you to hurt yourself. But take even a 5-pound dumbbell, Kimberly. I wish you could see my arm better. Okay, like this. And even take it and go straight up like this. Tell me how heavy it feels.
It's probably going to feel completely different than pushing it out like a bench press because you're using a completely different set of muscles.
Yeah. And another thing, guess what, Kimberly? You have no leverage.
Right.
No leverage. And so I bent over and I picked up his dumbbell and I took it to here and he said, Nelson, that was really impressive. Well, it's a little embarrassing that I'm so stiff that I can't press it over my head. And he said, let me tell you a secret. You're the only person that could pick it up to here. Out of the
Mhm.
thousands of people that are here so far, you're the only person that picked it up and brought it up to here. That's impressive. That's 170, 75 pound dumbbell.
Yeah.
You're a powerful man, my friend. I said, well, coming from you, Bill, that means a lot. Thank you. And he said, hey, Nelson, do you mind if I get a picture? Do you mind if I get a picture with you and your daughter? I said, Bill, that would be lovely. He said, thanks. And somewhere my daughter has a picture of her standing with her father, me, next to Bill Kazmaier, one of the strongest men to ever.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was a fabulous moment.
So, how would you sum up the moral of that story?
The one I just told,
Hmm.
let me be clear, I understand your question about how to eat.
Or just the moral of that story. Like what is the lesson that we can attain from that story?
Well, I'll give you a few. Number one, live your life so you're always prepared for the
Hmm.
magic. I
Hmm.
pray every day, Lord, I am ready for the magic, mystery, miracles of the day. Bring it to me.
Yeah.
And I'm playful with it, but I have a very, if you ever hang out with me, if we ever do any work in person, you'll find that I have a very magical life. Like I'm that person that cool stuff is always happening to. Nelson, we only have 40 minutes to get a lunch. Okay, where are you going? You're not going to find anything in the front of the restaurant. Really? Okay. We'll go around. Boom. There's it right in front of the restaurant door. There's a parking space. I anticipate that the best will happen to me.
Oh,
Don't that?
I like that.
Yes.
Anticipate the best. See,
Yes.
I often will approach things, prepare for the worst, but hope for the best,
I love that.
like an optimistic cynic. I
Yes.
never anticipate the best because then I could be disappointed. But I think sometimes if you do anticipate the best, that might actually help it come to fruition.
Well, I love your interpretation. I'm going to give you one of my mantras.
Oh, okay.
I will always be exactly where I'm supposed to be with the right people doing the right things at the right time.
I'll always be exactly where I'm supposed to be with the right people doing the right things at the right time.
Watch
Okay.
how magical your life becomes if you program your mind to accept that.
Yeah, I that kind of reminds me of this message I keep hearing that imagine that everything in life is happening for you, even
Say
in the
that's the same
moments
idea.
of struggle and strife. If you can accept that these struggles are happening to teach me a lesson so I can help heal others or teach others, then it seems like everything has more of a clear purpose and it's not just random. You're not suffering for some random reason.
I forgive me, I don't in any way mean to be self-aggrandizing or arrogant, but out of the spinal injury I had, I became very, very, very good at what I do.
Hmm.
I mean, what I can do with you standing in front of me is pretty miraculous. And I think when you watch me work on you, and if you'd like, you're welcome to videotape it because it's pretty impressive. It's pretty
Oh
incredible.
yeah, that would be really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, one of these days you let me know when you can, and I'm going to invite you over and we'll get somebody to videotape it and you're going to watch me work. And once again, please forget, I don't mean to be in any way arrogant, but you're going to watch me do things. And as you watch me do things, I just want you to remember that the vast majority of what I do is based out of combat, which is
Yeah.
ironic and funny to me.
Yeah, no,
So,
I would love that. I think that
yeah,
would be really interesting. And to
yeah,
experience it firsthand, now that we've been kind of talking about it,
yes,
like, I want to see what this is like firsthand.
you're welcome to do it. I will be in one of my favorite places in the world starting Tuesday through Sunday, which is fishing. That's when my
Okay.
that's what I do when I want my portal to open up.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, when you want to have that kind of spiritual connection. It's
Yes.
interesting. You're not the first person to tell me that fishing is like a meditative, spiritual experience. So interesting how different types of experiences for different people can help them connect to something divine. For
Yes.
you, it might be fishing. For someone else, it might be basketball, running, yoga, painting, music.
And there's always some level of irony in it. For example, I hate hurting things. If I could be a
Yeah.
vegan, I've tried 6 times in my life to be a vegan. It was disastrous for me.
Oh,
Disastrous. I got
it's
so sick,
tough.
weak,
It's
and
not impossible, but it's
no,
tough.
you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
But once again, look at your heritage. Look at where your people come from. Eat the best version of what they ate. Not when they were, in slavery or anything like that. I mean, where they in natural settings, how they ate, and then look with the help of a professional to find where their weaknesses in that form of eating.
hmm Yes. I think that's great advice because years ago, when people were living longer, um, the way food is processed, especially in the US, is very different from
Yes,
going back to nature. So
yes,
I think subsistence farming would be this ideal lifestyle. If we could all learn how to grow our own food the correct way, the healthiest way possible, without the pesticides and the genetically modified stuff. It's really hard to eat healthy nowadays.
it's
Even if
really
you're going to a grocery store and you think you're doing the right things, it's really easy to get an organic label on something that might not necessarily
yes,
have as much potent bioavailable nutrients as you might
right.
think. So it's just hard to navigate nutrition nowadays. We could have a
Well,
whole other talk
conversation about
just
that.
about nutrition, I think.
Yeah. Well, here's what I predict, and I've predicted this, Kimberly, for a long time. I've had people say, Nelson, where do you think farming and healthy eating is ultimately going to be? And I said, I'll tell you exactly where it'll be. We're going to be forced to have groups of people that do things like, Kimberly, what do you and your family want to grow? You want to grow beets? You grow green beans? Okay.
Yes, I would love to go grow healthy produce,
Yeah.
all leafy greens, sweet
Yes.
potatoes, beets.
So we're going to have we're going to form groups where we have co-ops. I might say, Kimberly, I'm going to grow chicken. I'll grow lettuce and I'll grow broccoli. And so we're going to make groups where people adhere to the mindfulness of growing food in the healthiest
hmm
possible. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, I feel like groups already exist like that, but I would love to see more of that in this world.
And that's what I'm talking about, Kimberly, is getting more and more and more people to adhere to, all right, let's get 10 or 20 people and we're all going to grow different things.
hmm
Can you
I love
imagine?
that. Yeah, I would be a part of that co-op.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so we're almost out of time, but I really want to thank you so much for sharing your insights and your stories and your energy with me. I have one more question for you. It's kind of a loaded one.
Okay. I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
But if you could define true wellness in one sentence, how would you define true wellness? What does true wellness mean to you in one
Wow.
sentence?
I figure a super smart person would ask me a really complex question. That's a really hard question to ask. Um, I would say true wellness is that within reason. Like I coached women that became world lifting champions. You're probably not going to be one of them, Kimberly. Why? Because you probably don't even care about that, right? Like you don't care about me training you to be very, very strong, likely, would be my guess.
Yes, no, I'm not interested in lifting 300
Yeah,
pounds. I just want to live
yeah,
a happy
yeah.
life.
So my point is this. It's airy fairy to say you can do anything. You can't do everything. I'm not going to out wrestle a lowland gorilla. Not going to happen, right? I wrestled a mountain lion once. I got my butt kicked, and I was much stronger than the average person. And he played with me. He played with me. My point is, we can't really do everything. That's ridiculous, and it's not true. But I think within reason, being able to do the things you want to do with mind, body, and spirit. I want to have this level of education. I want to be able to jog 2 miles a day or walk 3 miles a day. I want to be able to meditate for this long. I want to be able to have this level of flexibility.
Mhm.
I think is what it's all about. Can you do the things you really want to do that are within reason?
Yeah.
And I was at the peak of my strength when somebody irritated me. I could do ridiculous things. Like I remember once a group of young people, sorry, I hope you can tolerate me after this, cut me off and took my parking space.
Oh,
And I said, I'm a really good person, but I don't like, you can put in the expletive if you want. Well, we beat you in it. I said, I wasn't racing you into my parking space. I was already moving my vehicle into the space when you cut me off. And had I not stopped, we would have had an unnecessary accident. Well, we beat you, man. Yeah, okay. Let me share something with you, young man. Next time you do this, I'm going to wait for you to get out of your car and then I'm just going to tip it over. You can't do that, man. Really? Are you sure? I don't think so. I said, move out of my way. And I took my shoulders and I put him inside his open car and I lifted two wheels off the ground and I paused and I said, can I or can't I? And he swore and he said, holy, you know what? You got two wheels off my car off the ground. I said, yeah, know this if you do it again, just because I'm kind of irascible sometimes and I don't like smart asses. I'm going to tip your car over. What do you think of that? I don't think it's very cool, man. Well, I don't think it's very cool that you cut me off and took my parking space. So being able to do most of the things that you really want to do, whether
yes,
it
I think
be,
that's a nice practical way of looking at it. Being able to do the things you want to do within reason.
within reason.
Yeah.
Like at 75, I might not be tipping over anybody's car. So don't
Yeah.
worry about me in parking lots. Hey, Dad, that was Nelson here who tipped over the guy's car in the parking lot at the probably not going to
Yeah.
be a consideration. But fundamentally do most of the things within reason or mildly out of reason that you really want to do.
Mildly out of reason. No, that's a great simplified way of looking at wellness that I
Yeah.
think could be relatable to pretty much anyone. So I love that. That's beautiful.
Can you do
Um,
your yoga practice? Can you do some basic weightlifting? Here's one. This is something that's very predictive about your health status. Can you go on the floor, put your legs out in front of you or underneath you and get up off the floor?
yeah, that's a good health assessment, physical
Yeah,
fitness assessment.
right. Because believe it or not, most people, certainly by 60, 70, they need help getting off the floor.
Yeah. They're just practicing the art of sitting down and standing up from the floor.
Yes.
If you don't use it as we get older, you're going to lose it. That's why it's so important
Right.
to have some type of mobility practice, to have some type of strength practice, and to have some type of mindfulness practices and integrate that mindfulness into eating healthy and just living an intentional life. So I think all those things are really important. I love how you touched on a lot of the same philosophies that I align with. So everything you said
Fine
was
with
very
truth.
relatable for me
Yeah.
personally. And I just want to thank you for sharing your journey. I think it's a beautiful reminder of the body's capacity to heal and how powerful it can be when we approach wellness from the
Yeah.
inside out.
Oh, thank you. And you'll notice that there are many common paths to get you to a similar place.
Yeah. There's more than one way to heal and to
Yes.
maintain health. So I think it's important to approach health and wellness through various modalities.
Yeah, see what's
Is there anything else you would like to share before we close today? If anyone's listening, how can they contact you and find you in the real world?
Thank you. I really appreciate it, Kimberly. My name is Dr. Nelson David Bulmash, and in 2 months, will have run Health Matters for 34 years. I'm in a city called Alpharetta, Georgia, which is part of the greater metro Atlanta area. And I It's funny you asked me that because I've had people come from Russia, Italy, Germany, France, Brazil, Venezuela, and almost every state in the United States they have flown in to see me. So I love guests coming in from afar. I love helping people. And one of the things you'll know about me is I give it my all. If you come to see me, I'm going to give everything I have to helping you get better. And if I can't do it directly, I will help share the responsibility with others like me to help you recreate your life, your purpose, and your ability to live wonderfully in the world.
I love it. So, to anyone listening, if you enjoyed this conversation or found it helpful, inspiring, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and stay mindful, stay nourished, and keep flowing forward to the best version of you. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this chat as much as I
It
did.
was,
I found it
it
very
was
inspiring.
absolutely lovely. One last thing,
Great.
my phone number is 770
Mhm.
740 8228. Kimberly, I knew I'd have an amazing time with you. I got that when I spoke to you the other day when I was sitting reflectively and contemplating my life and where I was going to go in the near future. Um, while I was sitting out on my deck the other day, and you surpassed all thoughts of what this would be. I had an actually, this was may have been the most fun podcast I've ever had, and I've done a whole.
Aw,
Yeah,
well, I really appreciate it.
you are very well.
Yes, you can find Dr. Nelson's work on healthmatters.org. So follow him if you found this inspiring, share this with others. And with that, I guess we will bid you all adieu. Stay healthy out there.